Alright, what's up, everybody? We're back with another edition of Everyday Hoops. Hope you guys are having a good one. Today's video, we're going to be doing episode 5 of season 2 of the Look In series, a series where I go through all 30 teams at the end of their season and recap their years, talk about the future, what state the team is in, and stuff like that. Today's episode is on the San Antonio Spurs. I got a lot to talk about with this Spurs team. We're to get into it. Thank you guys for the views on the videos and the shorts recently. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the content around here, consider subscribing, like, turn notifications, do all stuff like that. I'd really appreciate it. Really upset a lot. Join the membership. If you want to learn more about the membership, there's a video on my channel explaining all of it. You can go back and watch that. If you missed any other look-in episodes, you can go back and watch those. Link to my Twitter, TikTok, stuff like that in the description down below. And yeah, don't waste any more of your time. Let's get right into it. So the Spurs this season, they finished 22-60, the same record as they did last season, finishing 14th in the West. They were last in the West for most of the year until the last couple of days of the season. But yeah, unfortunately, even though they maybe got better on paper, had a similar season, the expectation going into this year really wasn't any. We still, this is what, kind of like still the start, year 2 or 3-ish of the rebuild, so it's like not really big expectations. But then we saw Wemby in the offseason, in the preseason, and saw how good he was. And we were like, you know what, maybe can this team fight for a playing spot? I think a lot of people, including me, I was like, maybe they could fight for a playing spot. Maybe they not make it, but maybe they could be competitive. And they were competitive at some points throughout the season, but most of the year they were just kind of at the bottom of the Western Conference, and they finished 22-60. But there's a lot to talk about this team, and we're just gonna get right into it right away. Victor Wembanyama had one of the greatest rookie seasons of all time. Wemby, in his 71 games he played, he averaged 21 points, over 10.5 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, and led the league with over 3.5 blocks per game on 46, 32, 79 shooting splits. He had a ridiculous rookie year, one of the greatest rookie seasons we've ever seen. It started early. In the preseason, we saw what he can do, how can he affect the court and affect the floor, and it was like, oh, shoot. Like, okay, this dude could be something. And then as the season caught on, it feels like his progression during the season was just ridiculous. Like, he started the year off, he had a big game against Phoenix where he had 38 and 10 and they did a comeback win. He had some good games here and there, but it was like, all right, he's still a rookie, but you see the flashes. And then it felt like he got to like January, and then it was like, oh shoot, here he really is. And then it got to like March, and it was like, oh my god, this dude is like a top 20 player. Like, it felt like every like 2 months he got better and turned into like a different player. Like the first couple months of the season, he was really good. Then you got to January, and it was like, oh my god. He started having 5x5s. He started having 4 or 5 block games regularly. He had his first triple double, 16, 12, and 10. He had double double. He moved over to the center position, and he started getting double doubles like nothing. He started getting 5, 6 block games. He had a triple double with blocks, 27, 14, 5, and 10 blocks. He had a 5x5 game, 27, 10, 8, 5, and 5, which is the day after he was 1 assist shy of getting a 5x5 game. So that was ridiculous. He had some big moments in the fourth quarter. He had a 40-point game against the Knicks, 40, 20, and 7. He had a game, the last game he played of the season against Denver, 34, 12, and 5. He scored 13 points in 2 minutes or something like that. And that stopped Denver from getting the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. Like, he had just some ridiculous games. And he, like, of course, coming into the year, he's probably the most hyped up prospect we've ever seen. Saying this guy could change a franchise. This guy could be one of the greatest players we've ever seen in NBA history. And it's really tough to live up to those expectations. But as a rookie, I think he blew everybody away as a rookie. Like, we expect him to come in and maybe show some moments, maybe have a solid rookie year. I don't think we expected this, right away. Right away, the first, like, 2 months we saw him playing, we're like, oh, yep, there it is. Like, we see the hype. Like, it was ridiculous what he did this season, you know? But also, looking at the rest of the team, it's kind of very odd to see what else do we have here in San Antonio. Who stays, who goes, kind of thing. Devin Vassell, I feel like, had a really good season as well. He averaged 19 points per game, shot 47, 37, 80. Had a couple 30-point games. I really like Devin Vassell. I think Devin Vassell should be a part of this team for the future as well. He's a guy that can shoot the ball really well from 3. Also has developed a little bit more into a scorer. Besides just being a catch-and-shoot player, he's just been more of a scorer as well. Defensively, he can get it done. I think he's a really good second or third option to a team. Jeremy Sohan, he was running point guard early in the year, but I do feel like he's a good player. Had a really solid year. He averaged 11, 6, and 3. So I think he's solid. After that, I don't really know what's concrete here in San Antonio. Kellin Johnson, the last couple years was the best player on the Spurs. This year didn't have the same year statistically. Started coming off the bench, so it's like, how much do the Spurs really believe in Kellin Johnson? Especially after signing him to a rookie contract. Extension that just kicked in. So how much do the Spurs believe in Kellin Johnson? Um, and everything else around here, I don't think anything really is safe in San Antonio now. And that is because I feel like the rebuild is over already in San Antonio. I think the rebuild, the tanking to get draft picks, the waiting a couple years, developing young players, that's kind of over in a sense. Not fully over, but it's over in some ways. I don't think we have to tank anymore with San Antonio. I don't think San Antonio has to tank anymore. Has to be a 25 win team. I think those days are done already. After just what, 2 or 3 years maybe of this rebuild, I think it's over already. I don't think we have to tank anymore with Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs winning 21 games in a season. That's done. Getting top 5 picks. I mean, if it comes, sure, but we're not trying to do that anymore. Developing young players, we can do that to an extent. Like, we still develop Jeremy Sohan, Malachi Branham, your City Sissoko. We can still develop them, but they're not going to be, given 35 minutes. Like, they're not going to be, like players we have to put in the rotation, have to put in the starting lineup or anything like that. I think it's time to win. It's time for San Antonio to lock in and start being competitive again. And Victor Wembanyama changed that. Victor Wembanyama has changed the Spurs organization's mindset. To me, at least, if I was the GM of the Spurs, Victor Wembanyama changed my mindset. But coming into the year, I was like, all right, year one, we got our superstar. Now let's see what we can build around him. Let's see what he can do. We saw what he can do. It's time to win. It's time to go out. It's time to make some moves. It's time to give Victor a good team around him, and let's compete with Victor Wembanyama now. That's how great he was this season. What can you do? Something that's been talked about in the last couple of months that's been really popular is Trey Young potentially to San Antonio, with the Hawks not being great, with the Hawks maybe floating Trey Young out there on the table, seeing maybe one of Trey and DeJounte is not going to be here any longer. People are thinking, well, Trey Young and Victor. I seen something recently, Donovan Mitchell and Victor Wembanyama. Like, the Spurs have a chance to potentially go get a star, and pair someone with Victor. And I think they're going to have money this offseason, which we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes. They're going to have money in this offseason. They have some trade pieces, and they have a superstar in Victor Wembanyama that I think people would love to play for. So I think the San Antonio Spurs rebuild is over already. I think it's time to start winning. It's time to buy in, and it's time to put a good team around Victor Wembanyama. But now, speaking of that, looking towards the offseason for the Spurs team. In the NBA draft, they're going to have their own pick, which is projected right now as a top 5 pick. So they could pair another young player with Vic. Looking at who they should take, I think a guard would be really nice. A point guard. They never really had a real point guard. I really like Trey Jones, but I don't think he's a starting point guard in this league. I think he's a really, really good backup, though. Nikola Topic is a guy that's been talked about, 6'6" point guard from overseas, played at Red Star. That I think, he's a guy that gets other people involved. Isn't going to take too much away scoring wise from Vic, so I think that would be a good option. Maybe even Reed Shepard from Kentucky. I think he's just a really good basketball player overall. I think you could put him at the 1 and the 2, and he'll find a way to make it work. I think he's a really good player. I've seen Rob Dillingham. I wouldn't mind it at all, because he does have the scoring punch to kind of help Victor. And also, I think he is kind of an underrated playmaker, and he's been very efficient. I don't know about him in a Spurs, system and Spurs uniform. I can't really picture it right now. But if that does happen, I wouldn't be mad at all about it. And another thing that makes this Spurs rebuild and the trade market very interesting is that there's potential that the Spurs can have 2 lottery picks. They potentially could have the Toronto Raptors pick. The Toronto Raptors, from the Jakob Poeltl trade that happened a couple years ago, where they traded Jakob Poeltl back to Toronto, the Spurs have the Raptors pick this year that is protected 1 through 6. So if that pick falls 7 or below, that's the Spurs pick. Right now, Toronto keeps that pick right now because right now it's number 6. But if that Raptors pick falls, that's San Antonio's pick. So San Antonio could potentially have 2 top 10 picks in this draft, which they could take one of those top 10 picks, or maybe both, depending on how they feel about this year's draft and how they feel about, you know, getting, if there's a real superstar coming on the way, take those 2 picks. You have the contract of Kellin Johnson, that can make the money work. Devontae Graham can make the money work. How much do you believe in the young guys like Jeremy Sohan and Malachi Branham and them? And you could go out and someone will buy it. Someone will take that package. Personally, for me, I feel like someone will take that package. So you potentially could have 2 top 10 picks this year, and then you're also gonna have 2 second-round picks this year. Your own second-round pick, and then another second via the Lakers. So you potentially could have 4 picks in this draft. So that's a really nice thing, especially those second-round picks for the Spurs. I feel like that maybe they could come in and win right away with this type of draft class. I have a lot of good winning role players. I think a second-round pick is nice in this draft. You could come in and get someone that could really help their team. So they have the draft pick, capital to make a big trade work. And then you look at free agency. They don't really have much free agents. Their biggest free agent is Cedi Osman. Who is he going to be back? Who cares really? But the big thing is they have $34 million in projected cap space, which can be used to, 1, help facilitate a trade to get a good player, and 2, get some free agents in there that could help. Now, this free agency isn't full of stars. Looking at this free agency class, Klay Thompson, maybe, could help the spacing. Tobias Harris is a really solid player. After that, yeah, do you want Kyle Lowry? You want Buddy Hield, maybe, if he doesn't come back? D'Angelo Russell, maybe, if the Lakers don't bring him back. D'Angelo Russell could be a decent option, especially if you don't go out and trade for a Trey Young type player. Get a good guard. There's some good shooting in this free agency class with, again, Klay Thompson. You got Buddy Hield. You got Luke Kennard in here. So you got some shooting and some spacing that can help. Wings like Tobias Harris, Gordon Hayward, who's older now, but maybe you can get him on a good contract. That can help defend. This is solid role player free agency class. You know what I mean? So let's say if they can pull off the big trade, maybe go get Trey Young, and then still have some money left to sign some solid role players, this Spurs team definitely could be back in there in the competitive race next season. There's a realistic world where that can happen, and having Victor on the team already is gonna make this team competitive. There was games that the Spurs won literally just because Victor Wembanyama turned up, and they won the game. The way he can already impact the game on both ends already is ridiculous. And the crazy thing is, this is the worst we're gonna see him. Next year he's gonna be even better. The year after that he's gonna be even better. It's just ridiculous. This is the worst version we're gonna see of Vic, and he averaged 21, 10, and 4, and almost 3.5 blocks per game. So the sky's the limit really for him if he really wants to. But this Spurs, personally for me, I'm gonna keep saying it. I think the rebuild is over in San Antonio. It should be over in San Antonio. The Spurs front office right now should be saying how can we get talent around Vic, and how can we build a winning team around this guy? Or at 20 years old, we're already saying how can we build a winning team around him? And again, they got the draft capital, they got the salary cap, they got some decent young players that maybe they can go out there, make a big move, and this Spurs team can look a whole lot different next year. I'm super, super excited for it. But yeah, that's going to be it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, if you enjoyed the content around here, consider subscribing, turn notifications, do all stuff like that. I'd really appreciate it. Really helps out a lot. If you missed any other looking videos, you can go back and watch those on the channel. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow.